The following presentation was recorded live for the International Association of Square Dance Callers' 33rd Annual Convention. We take you live to the Renaissance Suites Hotel in Charlotte, North Carolina, where our session is just getting underway.
Oh, okay, good. Fantastic. We're up and running? Okay. Hey, welcome. This is the Advanced Choreography. I'm Bill Harrison. I'm the moderator. To my right is Randy Dougherty, and then to his right is Dottie Welch. The panel will explore different approaches in teaching and calling the advanced program. First off, I'd like to let you know that this is a taped session, so that we must keep things moving along as far as speaking, what have you. If you have any questions and what have you, I'll make sure I bring the microphone around to you. Please state your name and continue with your questions and so forth. I'd like to begin with opening up. Randy is going to be our first panelist who's going to start off, but I'd like to give you a little history about Randy. Randy has enjoyed the wonderful world of square dancing for over 35 years. In '79, he left his teaching position to devote full-time to his calling career. In '86, Randy left Minnesota for the warmer climes of Arizona. Currently, he runs a busy dance program in Mesa during the winter season. And in the summer, he tours the United States, many foreign countries, and they're listed, quite a few. Randy is also an avid supporter of CALLERLAB since inception. He became a dues-paying member and was able to attend his first convention in 1981. Since that time, he has served 3 terms on the Board of Governors of CALLERLAB, also has served on the Executive Committee and several instructional panels. Randy was honored with a special recognition award for his assistance in taping all the sessions at the '93 National Convention in order to establish what we now have today as a frequency count, which we didn't have before that time. So I'm going to turn it over to Randy.
Thank you, Bill. Just like I sent it to him. Advanced teaching tips is what we're going to be talking about, and I think Dottie's going to be touching on how complexity, degree of difficulty, things like that. First of all, learning is ageless, and it's not true that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. If you have that attitude, I would leave Arizona a long time ago, because we have a lot of seniors there, of course. The biggest problem when you're starting to teach your advanced is that you overlook the initial learning that they were supposed to have learned. We just take an assumption. We have a program booked and list, and it says, the people should have an existence. What is it? I think I highlighted it here. Anyway, they're supposed to know all their mainstream and all their plus, aren't they? And so that's the initial learning that they should have had before they come into your advanced class. But I find 90% of my people do not know that. So you can't just take it and overlook it and just assume they know that. Talent. Some people just say, oh, this guy is really talented as a caller, or this one's really a natural, talented dancer. I don't think there's no such thing as just an inherited talent. People have to become talented in their field by experience, by expertise, by practicing, by drilling. Most people just don't inherit it. Knowing your clientele. If you're going to be working with my seniors that I work with in Mesa, you're going to approach teaching the advanced calls a lot different than if you were doing a competition group that's dancing up in the Northwest, or if you're working with children, or if you're working with people, no matter what kind of style they have. You have to know your clientele. The teaching tips I'm going to be given are proven hints that educators during their teaching use for walkthroughs, for review processes. You'll be able to learn to avoid the mistakes, to plan ahead. The tips should not replace definitions. Tips and hints are something other than the definitions. The tips should enhance the learning experience and reinforce the dancer's ability to execute the calls. Good teaching skills and descriptive words are necessary during that process. You can put in your styling hints, your proper timing, tell the dancers how not to rush a call or how to make it smoother. This is one thing that really gripes me is when the caller stands up in front and just parrots the definition to the dancers. Some calls are so similar that you just confuse them by doing that. And teaching them in the same night, if the calls are similar, we call that a negative transference. If you're doing calls that are so similar in the same night, if you teach pass in and then 2 tips later or even 1 tip later you go and teach pass through and quarter in, you're going to have a negative transference. I refer to that. A positive transference would be more like an example at the mainstream would be you teach them right and left grand, they're doing that, and you throw in weave the ring and tell them it's something you already know, but now do it without the use of hands. That's a positive transference, and that's what you're looking for. Now, the dictionary says transference of knowledge is this: affected by the degree to which people learn with understanding rather than merely memorizing a set of facts or following a fixed set of procedures. And what that means is you can give them and try to teach them what a veer is, but are they just memorizing what you told them, or have they actually learned that? If you're in a squared up set and you're getting ready to start your A2 class or A1 class and you say heads veer left, and they don't understand what veer really means, and they're not stepping up to do the veer, going forward and in the direction is part of the call, and being half the distance away from that couple in a line is really important. So if I have heads veer left, you have an I formation, don't we? If I say number 1 couple walk across the square, get very close to the number 3 couple, I did that this morning in my gimmick, and I said veer left, they have to realize that the line is not in an I formation anymore because the distance between the noses of the 2 couples that were doing the call, and so you have to realize that. That's hard to get people to understand that. I find out that leads, veers, sweeps, cast off 3/4, these are calls that you'll have to go back and reteach, because if you don't, advance is just a nightmare for those people. Half sachets. Most people don't know half sachets. And, we have a lot of calls that used to be mainstream or plus calls, and through the years of not using these calls, they just kind of sifted up to the A1 or the A2 program. And a lot of our callers will just assume they know partner tag, because that used to be on the mainstream list how many years ago? 10 years ago. Or they just assume they know triple trade, because that was a plus call. Or just assume they know cross trail through, because that was a mainstream call. Don't assume anything, especially with the new dancers that's just coming up. Tell them where the call starts and where the call ends. The starting and ending formations, that's really crucial, I think. Talk to them in terms that they can understand. Don't use, for instance, crossover circulate. Have you seen the definition for crossover circulate? I'm going to be the parrot, and you're the dancer, and you're a caller, so you should be able to understand this. But when I read this paragraph, it just blows my mind away. From a general line only, each dancer moves forward 1 spot along the circulate path shown below. A lead in circulates to the center spot in the same line, and the lead center circulates to the far end spot in the same line. The trailing end circulates to the near center spot in the other line, and the trailing center circulates to the end spot of the other line. If the 2 dancers are about to collide, they are going to pass right shoulders. The bell goes in front of the bow if they are facing each other. That I don't understand. And then it says they pass right shoulders. If I read that to a bunch of dancers, they'd quit before you got started. You need some hints to get across. So, of course, when I'm getting ready to teach that, I got to go back and make sure the initial thing that they were supposed to know, that they do know. So I will circulate not just from waves or columns, but from facing lines, from lines facing out, from inverted lines. And I teach a crossover circulate all position from day 1, but I give them my little teaching hint, which is this: circulate along your glide path to the next adjacent position. And that's all you need to say. So if the end is circulating, instead of staying an end, they move to the adjacent center spot. If the center is circulating, staying in the center spot, they move to the adjacent end spot. And that's what all of that crap was in that definition that the parrot read. I don't think that helps the dancers much. When I get ready to start my crossover circulate teach, I usually do it from lines of 4, and I'll just say, girls on the diagonal, point at each other. I do a jaywalking action. I have them pass. And I tell them the end girl went to the center spot. The center girl went to the end spot. Okay, girls, look down your line. Girls, trade. Girls, you just did a crossover circulate. You went from the end girl to the center girl spot and vice versa. I let the girls do that a few times, and then I go with the men. And pretty soon you got them doing crossover circulate from a spot that is hardly ever called at A2, because what's the name of that call we're doing it from? No, it's the trade circulate. It's done from waves, isn't it? So when we do crossover circulate from waves, we usually say trade circulate. We rarely ever say crossover circulate, but they're exactly the same thing, aren't they? So when I have facing lines and I have the girls do their little jaywalking action, now we went to waves. And I get them doing them, but not all at once. I get the girls to do it, I get the boys to do it, and so on. Another definition, and by the way, if you haven't gone back through the definitions, there's a lot of changes. Some of it is astounding to me, but I want to review the crossover circulate from 10 years ago, 96. Listen to this definition. By the way, I've been on the definitions committee for about 10 years, and there's still lots of errors that we try to keep correcting and people pointing out certain things to us. It's a never-ending process. It says, crossover circulate from parallel two-phase lines. Dancers facing in will start a couple circulate, but as they cross the set, the dancers half sachet. That's good. The right-hand dancer crosses in front of the left-hand dancer at the left and sachet, okay? Moving to the end of the action as the couple's facing out, half sachet. The couple's facing out will do a tag the line and face in. How many people have used that as part of their definition? Tag the line and face in, which is the same as couples circulate and do what? Half sachet. So using the little teaching tip, I think, is circulating and sachaying into the adjacent spot helps, I think. The only thing I didn't like about that definition is when they say the right dancer has the right of way. If they're in a left two-face line and it's a normal arrangement and boys are in the middle with a left-hand join, does he let this girl go in front? Like they're implying in that definition? No, the guy takes the lead, doesn't he? It feels more like tag the line in from that guy's spot. But if you read this definition, it says you couple circulate along the glide path and then you half sachet. That puts the girl going in front of the guy. So that's why from 10 years ago we got rid of that definition and we ended up with something worse, I think. And there's a lot of instances where we have to go back through and do some more correcting, okay? Demonstrate the actions. Use two couples. If it's just a 2x2 arrangement, only use two couples. If you're doing some call that only requires two people, only use two dancers. Don't get a whole square up for a demonstration, even though a picture is worth 1,000 words, if it doesn't require all 8 people to do it, because people don't focus in on what they need to focus on. If you're using all 8, they don't quite see it so much. So unless you're doing an 8-people call, don't use 8 people up, okay? Have the dancers repeat the name of the call with you after you've completed the action. So if I teach them crossover circulate, I will get them to say the name of that call with me, and I'll say it with me, crossover circulate. And that will help to reinforce the name. So get them to do that on every call you teach. Say it with me, class. This is a swap around. Get them to say that. And they'll start putting the action with the name. Get them to repeat it after you. Introduce the traffic patterns before you introduce the new call. For instance, you're going to do mix. We're doing trade the waves. That'll give them the feeling of what a mix is. The mix is centers, cross run, in, slide together, trade. Well, that's good, but if you don't practice those ingredients ahead of time before the night that you get around to doing mix, and all of a sudden they can't do a partner trade, if they're sashayed, or they don't do a same-sex type partner trade. If you have a line of 4 looking out, and the boys are in the middle and the girls on the ends, and you call mix, what is the traffic pattern? There's a rule. The person in the center that is to the right has right-of-way, is what the rules say. And if you don't apply that by having first that dancer leaves and then the other center dancer leaves doing the crossing action for the cross run, the other slide together becomes a partner trade. Well, in this case, the 2 girls, almost always one of them will flip in and try to do a cut type action. They think the other girl is wrong, so they either give a left hand, do a left hand trade, or a right hand trade, when really mix can be one of the 3. Partner trade, right hand trade, left hand trade. So introduce the traffic patterns, maybe a tip or 2 before you actually get around to doing the mix. Use exactly the precise language that is described in the defining of the calls. Do not use boys and girls. You're way off base. Try to use ends, centers, leaders, trailers, bow, bell, insiders, outsiders, points. Use the right description for the call. The degree of difficulty, a lot of times when I'm going to do mix, I think to the new dancer, if they learn the definition, you're going to give them to an easy way, maybe a medium hard, medium, and then maybe a hard one. The last example of mix that I just said would probably be a little bit harder for most dancers. If you start out from is a right hand wave easier than a left hand wave to do mix? What do you think? I think a left-hand wave, I think, is the easiest way. Now, if you practice and get them ready, they don't know the definition yet. You might tackle the hardest one first, because they don't really know what is feeling natural yet, because they're just getting into it. A lot of times I do the hard one first, let them feel that, know it, have success with it, and then I go back and practice the easy ones and the medium ones. So it depends on the call also, of course. But she's going to touch on degree of difficulty a lot more in detail. A good teacher will predict the outcomes, the pitfalls. Where's there going to be a problem? In that mix, the pitfall is usually the girl on the end of that line. She wants to flip in and trade with the right hand. You got to plan ahead. You have to improve the dancer's understanding of what the call is. Note their failures to comprehend what you've told them. Make a note. Oh, they don't understand that one yet, and make sure that you go back through and reinforce it the following week. Without specific, I called it guidance, from callers, dancers may fail to connect what they used to know or their existing knowledge to what you're workshopping that particular lesson or workshop. And an example of this is splits and grands. When you do splits, I put them in tidal waves, and I call swing through. And normally the pitfall is they want to do what? Grand. So you keep telling them, we have a rule that's in our preface, our glossary, that says you have to work split. And you get them to do that. Do some walk and dodges from columns to get them to understand that it's staying in their box. And then you might do quarter through from the box, but not going over to the grand type quarter through. Once you get them to understand you're doing splits, well, they knew this call called trade by from way a long time ago. But because you've reinforced the split rule, I guarantee you, if I do my quarter through, my swing through, and I keep telling them, stay on your side of the wall, keep it split, remember there's a rule that tells us that. And then all of a sudden I do a hinge, puts them back into the column, and I say, now keep it split, walk and dodge, and now I call trade by. I see 90% of my dancers do what? A partner trade. When they knew what trade by was, but because you're reinforcing this other rule so much, they forget what they used to know. And without your guidance to help them, they don't realize that. And they don't realize all of a sudden you go back and you call all 8 circulate like we normally do from a column. They're hearing that rule, stay on my side, stay on my side. They do split automatically. And so you have to give them the guidance so that they can get through. I was going to tackle some specific calls. We talked about crossover circulate. One call that seems to be a problem unless you keep it standard is the cycle and wheel call. we know wheel and deal, and it's based on that same kind of family. If you have the right hand free, I call it the right hand free rule. In your side of the set, if you have your right hand free, you have right of way if there's going to be a collision. If there is no collision, you just do the normal cycle and wheel. So from our basic zero box, step to a wave, and you have the girls walk and dodge, none of the men who are on the ends have the right hand free, do they? There should not be a collision, so we just do a normal cycle and wheel. As soon as you start getting into cycle and wheels other than that, you got problems, and you're going to have to go back and reteach the wheel and deal that they should have known way back at basic and mainstream. And it's, you know, it gets very difficult. One setup that I can think of is this. Okay, we start with a zero box. Let's have the girls do a walk and dodge. They're now in a 3-in-1 line, aren't they? Girls run around the boys. Now, one of those girls has got a right hand free, and the other girl has a left hand free. The boys still have each other by the right hand. You call cycle and wheel. What would be the ending formation? Anybody tell me? A what? Completed or doubled or started? Well, from the setup that we started with the zero box, it would be a completed double pass-through setup. And most dancers can't comprehend that. They don't see that right-hand rule free. So that's something to touch upon. Maybe not right off the bat when you're teaching cycle and wheel, but within the next week or two, pick up on it. Another call that I see done incorrectly hundreds of times is the ends bend. Nobody knows how to either teach it or nobody knows what it really means, because 90% of the dancers, I don't care, even the ones that have been dancing advanced for a long, long time, they quarter in place. They seem to do quarter ends. They don't go around the corner to do that. And I've picked on ends bend for so long, it's almost a joke. I got my dancers saying something over the floor because I've depending on where I'm at, I wouldn't do this down in the Bible Belt, of course, but I have the dancers say it for me because I've had to say it so many times. I'll say, from this setup, I'll do from a two-face line, normal, right face. Three-quarter tag the line, puts the boys in the wave. The girls are looking out. Three-quarter tag setup. Boys recycle. Girls partner tag. Then call girls bend or ends bend. Either way, what will the girls do? Simply quarter turn in place. They don't go around the corner. So I'll wait a little bit, and then I've had to say, get on the damn end. Now, dancers that come from out of the Arizona area, they still dance it wrong, and yet my people that have been with me for a month or two, they're now shouting that over the floor. Whether it be good or not, I don't know, but it's a teaching technique. And it works. It gets the girls to understand, oh, I got to go around the corner. And then you do it for the first time for the boys. They do the same darn thing. They just quarter turn. Explodes. When I do explodes, I go back through. They should know explode the wave, right? I do explode the wave as step, turn, pull. 3 parts to the definition. I get them doing it from right-hand waves, left-hand waves. That's still all plus stuff. When I get ready to do the A1 version, explode the line, I usually do it from a standard line. I don't necessarily put the boys in the middle of the line looking out, or the girls. Some guys do that, and they'll teach it as a step and slide almost of arrangement. The boys step forward and the girls sliding behind, which is correct. Everybody quarter in and pull by. So they almost tell the definition of explode the line as a step and slide, quarter in, pull by. Our definitions have changed over the period of 2 years greatly. The way that I teach my explode the line is I get my lines looking out. I tell the centers that they're the crucial part of making this call, and they have to come flying out of that line just like bread out of a toaster, the old toasters. And I get them to pop out just like bread coming out of a toaster. And I say these words, pop, turn, pull. Now, Doesn't sound like that's going to help a whole lot, but pretty soon it becomes a game. It almost gets a little bit of comedy relief, too, because I put them in waves. Explode the wave, step, turn, pull. Explode the line, pop, turn, pull. Explode the line, pop, turn, pull. Pretty soon they're doing snap, crackle, pop. And it's just a way to get them to have fun, because it's still got to be fun, even though you're teaching them advance. I want to read what the difference is on explode the line. Here, listen for explode the line. From any line with centers facing in the same direction, centers step forward, all face in, quarter in, and right pull by, ending as couples back to back. Is that present or is that 10 years ago? That's old. That's old. That's what most of us are probably still teaching, I bet. Listen for the explode the line here. From a general line with the centers facing the same way, the centers step forward as the ends slide together, as in the step and slide. Then all quarter in, right hand pull by, ends in couples back to back. So, but now the other word was from a general line. This one up here just says from any line. So general line now is assuming that we can have inverted, 3-in-1s, other situations. Are you going to teach inverted lines the very first night you introduce explode the line? Probably not. Probably not the 3-in-1 line thing. If you get in a tidal setup, let's say a tidal wave, and you have head ladies or side ladies do, you turn back. Now you've got this tidal 3-in-1 setup, don't you? And when you call explode the line from there, do you know what the ending position is? This is what the starting and ending formation would be. What is explode the line from that arrangement? Are you following me? Anybody awake? What is the ending formation? Anybody know? Offset boxes, but also the couples are back to back, which is what the definition tells us. But it's in a triple file. There's a file of 4 men down the center, and there's 2 girls that are standing back to back. That's called a triple file. If you call that, you're going to have all kinds of confusion because they're not familiar with that formation. Another one that I do just to get the process of understanding explode the line is this. I'll say, and I know it's an unsymmetrical thing. I didn't realize it when I first called it, but I'll say, get in a tidal 2-face line and then say all the people that are facing the back wall, California twirl. They do that. Now I say, work as couples. Explode the line. Well, let me tell you, that goes to unsymmetrical calling, because when the both head couples, if they're both in the middle, it's either the heads are in the middle or the sides, you have them all pop forward. That's a whole line of 4. Then they have to face each other, and the head couples are pulling by head couples, and the side couples are pulling by side couples. You are going to sight call for the rest of your life and not be able to resolve that unless you have an idea that you made them unsymmetrical. But I will use that as a teaching technique to get them to understand pop, turn, pull. So now you're combining a concept of as couples explode the line and reinforcing the rule. The way I get out of that is I usually say bend the line, pass through, wheel and deal. Centers do a right and left through. The near box, zoom, and back to symmetry. Simple as that. Okay? When I do, of course, I do partner tag before I do horseshoe turns. When I do the swing through family, I tell swing through family, you got to remind them that it's always a right hand rule. And I usually will start that with saying, put them in a left hand wave and say, now some callers will never call this on you because they know it's a trick. Swing through always starts with the right hand, and get them thinking right hand calls. Then I proceed and tell them all the cousins that are related to swing through. Quarter through, 3/4 through, remake. Those are all right-handed calls. Okay? Do those more than just from the standard parallel waves. Put them in a diamond, a facing diamond, and have the wave right-handed and the others facing and call quarter through from there. They don't realize that, hey, the right hand got it started and then everybody finished the left. What is usually the situation? Everybody does the first call and then just the centers finish it, isn't it? It just reverses the role and reinforce the rule. So when I do swing throughs, quarter throughs, remakes, I give them more than just, because I had a lady saying, and same way with remakes, she says, you know, if I'm in this column out here, I don't get to do all three fractions. And she said, I thought I would be doing all three fractions. And I says, no. And she didn't realize that the girl or the guy, whoever it was beside her, did get to do all three. So, and then because of our rule change, are you aware that we no longer have remake the column? It's gone. Remake the column is no longer on our list. We've had a lot of changes within our programs, especially if you compare 10 years ago to what we have. Now it's going to be called grand remake. Grand remake. If you want them to work in their split box, you will say work split remake. The split would be a teaching tip or hint for them. If you want them to go across center line, like in remake the column, you used to do that. It used to be that remake calls always started with right hands except if you named the formation. If you named the formation, you were off the hook. So when you say alum and left like an alum and thar, right and left and form a star, the men back in. There, we were doing remake the thar, and it had to start with what? Left hand, because you identified the formation. We were off the hook. That's no longer part of the definition. So check it out. Is it legal to call remake the thar in our now usage of the call? I teach pass in, I teach pass out, and I teach pair off. I try to do it with a positive transference because all of those calls have to do with making a 90-degree turn with relationship to what? Flag, pole, center. So once I get them doing pass in and pass out and pair off, I'll do that all in one night. Positive transference, trying to get them to think. But I never use, I'm missing my coin. I never use the word 25 cents or quarter. The definition does all the time. But I never do that on those three specific calls because I want them to know that a 90-degree turn is what I want them to do. But when I use the word quarter, another 3 weeks down the road, when I say quarter in, I want them to think partner. And I play a game with them. I do quarter ins and quarter outs, but not the same night I've done the pass in, the pass out, and the pair off. This will be down the road. Now, if you look at the teaching order, it's got quarter in up here, and it's got quarter out way down there. I disagree with that teaching order because I get them to listen for the word quarter. When they hear the word quarter, they think partner. When they think partner, they think money. They think money, it's a quarter. It should have been called $20 in, $20 out. Get them to think for that money word. The money word is quarter. So when you teach the other calls, use a word 90 degrees, I think. Make a 90-degree turn so your back is to the flagpole. Doesn't seem like it's that important of a thing, but to me, I've had a higher success of getting people to understand the differences between those calls. Couple minutes more. Another one I want to bring to your attention that's a big change is the transfer the column. Is everybody aware of the big change on that one? Let me find it quickly. Transfer the column. From parallel columns, lead two dancers in each column will single file walk around the adjacent column. They move ahead to the middle point of the column and quarter turn individually to face the center of the set. Trailing two dancers circulate one position, cast off three quarters, extend to the outsides, forming parallel waves. Is that 10 years ago, or is that the new one? Is that new? No, that's old. That's 10 years ago. Listen to the new one. I just read it a week ago. Surprised the heck out of me. See if I can find it quick enough. Oh, it's an A1. You got it? Transfer the column from columns. They got number one and number two dancers. So now you can't use that unless they know what number one and number two dancers in the column are. This other one didn't mention anything about number one, number two, number three, number four. So now you got to make sure that they understand that you're not talking about their couple numbers, because as soon as you say number 1 and number 2, number 1 couples woke up and number 2 couples got their ears perked up because you've mentioned 1 and 2. Realize that, hey, gang, we're not talking about your couple number now. We're talking about the number you are within the column. Okay? Going on with the definition, it says number 1 and 2 dancers in each column circulate 3 spots, which is totally new, working slightly wider than the usual to give the centers room to end as a couple facing in. So let me repeat what they said. 1 and 3 circulate 3 spots, but wider than usual, turn and face in to become a pair. Then it says the others, meanwhile, 3 and 4 dancers circulate 1 spot, arm turn 3/4, and extend to form parallel waves with number 1 and number 2 dancers. That's a lot different. That's our new. That's what we have. That's what we got to live with. So what I've been telling people how to promenade a quarter around the square, I can eliminate that. You know, I worked for weeks trying to get people to understand if you're at the head of the set and you promenade a quarter, which direction to go. How far will you be? I don't have to go worry about that anymore, I guess, with this definition. I don't know if I like it or not. Maybe it's going to get better as I get acquainted with it. But right now, I'm not thrilled with it, but that's what we have. Closing, I have another little thing that I've done for years, and some of you have heard me do it, the zigzag call. Zigzag is a hard concept. It's, you know, it's a leader-trailer call. We've gotten away from doing a lot of leader-trailer calls. The leader-trailer call used to be right roll to a wave. The leader-trailer is gone in that also. If you're using that rule, throw it out the window. It's not mentioned in our definition at all. Zooms, that's a leader-trailer call. We need to usually reteach that when we're going to do peel off, peel and trail, leader-trailer call, trail off, leader-trailer call. When I do zigzags, usually they understand that zig is right and zag is left. They understand that. They don't understand how to figure out if you're the leader or the trailer. So to get them to think about at least the zig part and the zag part, I do a comedy relief in the beginning of that night, and then I'll call, okay, we're not going to worry about the leader-trailer, even though you're having little troubles. We're going to go back, just make sure you learn that zig is right, zag is left. Then I'll say, do an Allemande zag with your zag hand, partner zig in a zigzag grand. Zigzag around you go to meet your girl and you promenade home. Heads lead to the zig and veer to the zag, and bend the line, do a zig and zag through. Once, and that's going to be enough fun for them that it'll release all the stress that you had that night trying to teach those calls. And I've been doing that for years. And it's kind of like the backwards tip that Von Parrish used to do. But I'm going to give it back to you, or do you want me to give it to her? I'm going to go right.
Okay. Our plan now is if you have any questions for Randy or for Dottie, we will have that time at the end to do so. Okay. Our next presenter is Dottie. She grew up in New England, square dancing family. She and her husband Gary began square dancing in 1973. She began calling in Nova Scotia in 1983 for an advanced tape group that needed a caller. Then attended Callers College twice with Gloria Roth. She currently calls weekly in the Halifax area for beginners through A2 and has 15 years of C1 and C2 experience. That is now reduced to a when possible status. She's also involved with calling in the schools, prompting contrast cueing rounds and calling to live music. Within CALLERLAB, she is the chair of the Choreographic Applications Committee, and I don't believe she's the co-editor anymore. I think you are the editor now, is that correct? Of the Community Dance Journal and member of several other committees. Your panelist, Dottie.
Thank you. Okay, so we've basically got some idea about the teaching process. What I've focused on is the assumption that dancers have more or less learned at least the first go around with teaching, which in some environments might be not a whole lot more than what I kind of think of as standard advanced, although that's not the typical CALLERLAB terminology. And I'm going to look a little bit at, okay, now we're ready to put into the choreography a little bit more creativity than they might have gotten during class. And the second part, we are ready. They've reached the point where we're ready to start thinking about a little bit of workshop stuff because we're beyond the first teach level. And where do you go with that? So starting at the top here, I've got 5 principles that I think of as the basic things that I always have in mind. Every night, integrate all available moves into the choreography. And that doesn't mean just all the advanced moves, but that's kind of obvious, but also include the entire Mainstream and Plus. Now, I won't always do everything on the Mainstream and Plus, but last tip of the evening when they're getting tired, I start tossing in Relay the Deucey and Spin Chain the Gears so that when they go out to a Plus dance, they don't look like fools. Okay? Search for interesting and smooth combinations. Work up to complexity. When developing a more complex sequence, gradually add difficulty so the dancers can adjust to the surprises in small increments. Pay attention to the degree of difficulty. In the workshop environment, some explanation and teaching of moves used in a unique way is appropriate. Plan to introduce small bits of creativity while paying attention to all of the degree of difficulty issues. Strive always for success and use choreography that is smooth when learned. Now, if you want to look at the back here, I have attached onto the back a 3-page thing on degree of difficulty. How long has it been since the last time you thought about all the pieces of degree of difficulty? Most of this stuff came from various CALLERLAB publications. I've tried to condense it down into a chunk instead of several pages of stuff here. And I'm not going to go through all of this in detail, but what can cause things to be hard? The first 2 pages are general things that apply to mainstream dancers as well as they do to advanced and challenge dancers. The last page is more specific. So I'm going to go through the first 2 fairly quickly because hopefully all of you are aware of these things anyway. The obvious, they can't hear. Color's not clear. Maybe not quite so obvious. Dance or bad habits. Now, Randy did say you got to worry about teaching the stuff that didn't get taught before. One of those things is how well do they make their formations? At advanced, that suddenly becomes very important. And if they are not reaching out, making their lines, making their waves, whatever, then they soon lose where they're supposed to be. So sloppy formation, sloppy positioning. If a dancer likes to stand at an angle and not really facing the head walls, not really facing the side walls, they're going to have trouble. To me, one of the differences between Plus and Advanced is we have more moves at Advanced where the dancer's on their own. They don't have a hand to lean on or crutch to hold on to. They have to be in the right place at the right time themselves. And so positioning is important. Interpretation problems. Slow recall time, obviously. If it's a new move, it takes them longer to respond. Anticipation, the usual. Be careful about your combination of calls. Don't use the same thing all the time. Focus in the wrong direction. This becomes a real issue. As they learn more formations and as we shuffle between the formations rapidly, they have to learn that, oh, I'm thinking wave. Now I'm thinking box. Now I'm thinking diamond. Now I'm thinking hourglass. Now I'm thinking the diamond in the middle of the hourglass. That takes practice on the part of the dancers. That's not easy, that skill of refocusing. And as a caller, be aware that dancers need time to change their focus. Use a common application to change the focus before using a more difficult move. Make sure they realize that you're talking about this new formation before you hit them with the tricky thing that they might find more difficult. Tendency to make it right. Girl wants to be on the right side of the man, and if he's not there, she fixes it, or he fixes it. So, what do you do about that? Let them know that you know that they are on the wrong side and are supposed to be there. Uncommon call. Call in the program but seldom used. Be careful with those. Be aware of moves other callers tend to avoid and be ready to help dancers when you use them. Simplify definition recall. If you're using an application that's not common, then whatever they remember as their definition might not be all the information they need to be able to accomplish the move. And you're going to have to help with the bits that they have forgotten because they don't need it very often. Obscure usage, much of the same thing. You're stretching the definition, you've got to help. Standard 4-dancer formation, but an unusual orientation in the 8-dancer formation. For instance, I mean, this is a plus application, but if you had a tidal wave and called linear cycle, what's going to happen? A lot of them are going to end up in lines. They won't go far enough. They'll stop because they think linear cycle ends in lines, and their brain turned off and didn't realize, oh, I got to go further here. So you're going to have to help them with that. Non-standard starting arrangement. Pay attention to standard applications. Now, even though these are advanced dancers, and in theory, they are supposed to be able to dance plus non-standard, can they? You're lucky if they can dance standard at the start. Certainly anything that's non-standard, severely non-standard, is a be careful situation. Left-handed application, same issue. Response limits. Allow for slower response time when dancers are warming up, tired, distracted, or aging. Okay, brain overload problems. Stacking calls, the obvious thing. I mean, you tell them to do too many things and they can't remember them all. That's obvious. Overloading the brain. When dancers are thinking hard about the current move, they won't hear complex instructions for the next move. So separate with something that's easier in between. Long sequences. If you call a whole lot of moves before you resolve, what happens? It increases the chance that a mistake's going to be made before they get to the end, and now they start to feel less successful. So more shorter sequences gives them a higher feeling of success. Excessive cueing. If I babble on too much, then every once in a while I'm going to have somebody who's gotten it right think that I'm giving another call when I'm not. Calls with similar names, obvious kind of confusion issue. Try to help them. High concentration of movements at the upper limit of the dancer's ability. If you stack 4 or 5 A2 calls, bang, 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 you've raised the level of difficulty significantly because they're probably on the edge, of, especially if they're hard ones. If you do motivate, enroll, circulate, scoot and weave, bang, bang, then you're going to lose them. Falling behind. If you see out on the floor that one of the squares is struggling, what do you do to kind of give them a chance to get themselves caught up? Do something that's going to, the obvious thing is up to the middle and back, but something that gives them a chance to recover. Sorting of directions required. If you say heads do this and sides do that, or girls do this and boys do that, or centers do this and ends do that, they have to sort out what am I before they can even begin to apply whatever it is you're telling them. Body movement problems. These are all really things that hopefully any mainstream caller is aware of. Abrupt body motion changes, awkward. Overturning, so they have dizzy. Need the right hand free for 3 moves in a row. Insufficient space because the hall is crowded or whatever, and they can't do it in the middle. Insufficient hall space. Slippery floors due to waxing or moisture. And, of course, as at dancer's age or for whatever other reason, if they have physical problems, then that person is disadvantaged to begin with, and they are constantly adjusting. And then there's floor control. What can you do or not do? Don't cut the timing. Stop and go dancing. It's harder for a dancer to do that. It lowers the difficulty, but it increases the body fatigue. I remember dancing early on to a caller who was very smooth at advanced, as opposed to some tapes that we'd had which weren't so smooth. And I realized that the smooth caller, I danced all weekend long and never got tired because choreography was always smooth. Poor preparation for the singer, abrupt changes in difficulty, starting off with the standard application and suddenly going to one that's really off the wall. Poorly analyzed workshop choice. It's not appropriate for their level of ability. And letting minor mistakes become major disasters. If you can get them all turned around to face the direction they need, then they'll probably be able to carry on even if they're maybe not quite where they belong. But if you can't do that, then they're squares down. And so then we come to things that are advanced to me. We have to execute things with greater precision. They've got to be facing the right walls or they're not going to see the formation. Adding a roll. What does that do to the difficulty? Right up. Applying the facing couple or ocean wave rules. Big change. Applying any of the concepts. They can do it, but once you go as couples, they can't do it. Sorting of directions required. I already mentioned that. Fractions. Fractional parts of a call. Do they even have a clue what the fractional parts are? Modifying calls. Make it left, which is now on the advanced list after all. That opens up a lot of possibilities that a lot of us probably don't even use yet. The hinge, trade, and cast-off variations. If you change a hinge that's normally an arm turn to a partner hinge, that's going to raise the level of difficulty. Same thing for trade to partner trade, cast off from the right arm turn to the push cast or vice versa. Changes things. Phantom kinds of things. Anything where they have to work in their mind's eye or they're dancing with phantoms. And the last thing I put on here, T-bone applications, which to me are a C1 concept. They have to be taught, and we shouldn't be using them unless they are taught. If you want to workshop something, that's fine. But it's not inherently obvious. Do your part. If it's clear what your part should be, that's okay. Depends on the application there. Okay, so back to the beginning. So ideas for adding creativity to advanced choreography here. Now, what I've done is I've listed let me see, 5 things that I think of as things that I can do, toss into regular advanced dancing. This is really better if we dance. I don't know if you guys want to get up and dance. I can see whether we've got an all-male square, but we can do that if you like. But the first stuff here, okay, interesting beginnings. What can I do to get the square in motion? Now, I'm not necessarily aiming for any particular spot, but just to get the square in motion that gets away from the standard square through 4 or past the ocean, lead to the right. What are the possibilities? And I've listed a whole bunch of stuff here. Some stuff off a plus that you might not have thought about. Heads, box the net, and roll. Sides, double, star through, and roll. I'm just kind of sampling things here. You can, if I read through everything here, we'll run way out of time. So I'm going to kind of sample down here. Heads touch a quarter in the center's box counter, rotate, and roll. And just ways to get the square in motion, to get things happening that don't use the standard things. So be creative. Thinking these are just ideas. Second thing, surprise endings. First one there. Last 2 moves. Cast a shadow into a promenade. Ooh, that was nice. Partner tag to an Allemande left. Pass and roll your neighbor to an Allemande left. Left spin the windmill right 2. Ends in couples. Couples circulate and keeper and promenade home. Surprise endings. Oh, I wasn't expecting that. There they are. Then I've looked at some surprise sight resolutions. And I can't use all of these, but I use some of them. So what I'm doing here is recognizing a snapshot location. For instance, if you look at the first one with the little diagrams there, I've got paired couple, couple number 2 and 4 on the outside, unpaired couple in the middle. That's probably a resolution that you recognize as what would the centers have to do? The parentheses are meant to be ladies, and the square boxes are meant to be men, and the arrows are noses. Okay, everybody with me? Square through 3. Okay, so that's a resolution that you should be able to recognize by this time. Okay, so what are the other options? I recognize this. I don't want to call square through 3. Double pass through, horseshoe turn to your corner, element left. So I can use that when I'm resolving by sight. I'm going to a little module that I know, but that's what you're doing when you do square through 3 too, really. Okay, and there's some other possibilities there. You might have to try these, but spin the windmill right 2, left quarter through, and the girl circulates your corner. Okay, so I'm doing the same thing on the next one, double pass through formation, which I call the centers pass through get out. So you can see that. So instead of doing that, centers do-so-do to a wave, those ladies trade in chain reaction, and that'll take you to grand right and left. Maybe you've thought of these yourself, maybe you haven't, but here's some suggestions. Next one is what I think of as the Dixie Grand get out on the next page. That's a paired couple in the middle with their corners behind them. Centers pass through, swing through, and cast a shadow. Takes you into a promenade. Nice surprise get out. Second one, centers pass through, do a right and left through and veer left. Crossover circulate, turn and deal. Now you're facing your corner, element left. Okay? Anybody want to dance some of this stuff, or do you want to sit? How are you guys? You're all in the sit mood. Okay, so I won't. The next batch was designed to, if I had a square that wanted to dance, and all it does is combine some of the beginnings with some of the endings so that you can test them. So let's just move on beyond that. It's the same information again. All right. Alternative setups. Beyond the get them in action, I want to set up position for chain reaction. How can I do it in some other way than heads past the ocean chain reaction? Question. Okay? So the second example there. Sides past the ocean extend, swing through, single hinge, centers trade and extend. Sets them up in a position so that when I do the clover, the ladies, on the couple that's facing out is normal. So the girl's doing the normal clover leaf and the man's doing the normal clover leaf. And in the middle, it's a normal spin the top with the girls on the ends and the boys in the middle, so that you end up with a normal position for chain reaction, but you're coming into it out of this clover and spin the top, which gives them a very new feel without raising the difficulty of the chain reaction, except that we've come into it from a new way. It's a standard, what I think of as a standard chain reaction, that is the heads past the ocean chain reaction. Head slide, the next one right after it. Head slide through and spread, pass through, do a half tag, which puts the girls in the middle, boys in the end, and motivate. So again, that's what I think of as a standard motivate with the girls in the center, boys in the ends, but we're coming into it out of a half tag. As a lady, I'm aware that motivates body flow's not great. Because what does the girl who's facing out do in a motivate? She's in the middle. Yeah. Trade, because that's the circulate, and then she goes 3/4 more around. Okay, so I would like to set her up with something that doesn't further emphasize that. Okay? I don't want to make it any worse than it already is. Motivate's not the best body flow for that person. All right. Different combinations of repetitions. It's just some ideas here. And I've underlined the critical part so you can kind of ignore the rest unless you actually want to use this. Cast a shadow twice in a row. Once and then again. You might tell them to do it twice, or you might just call cast a shadow, let them do it, and then call cast a shadow again, depending upon the level of your dancers. And notice that it goes right into a right and left grand. Second one, single wheel. This is a wonderful thing to play with. Have you all seen the situation where you get the great long tidal formation and you can do single wheel 3 times in a row? I'm just playing with that concept there. My dancers thought this was kind of neat when I was testing this one out on them. The next one, we've got Step and slide partners, leaders partner trade, and I'm repeating it. Pass out, step and slide, leaders partner trade, pass in, box the gnat, pass through, step and slide, leaders partner trade, and you're facing a corner and basically at home. Right roll to a wave. And cross. Do you use that combination? It's nice and smooth. And I've used that a couple of times there. That was kind of a, I was asked in the Canadian National in Vancouver way back in 1990, I think, to do a non-standard workshop, and the two moves they gave me were cross, roll to a wave, and the second move was and cross. I thought, that's an interesting combination. So I worked with the combination, not just the two moves separately. Check over and mini busy, crossover circulate and mini busy. There's some nice things you can do with mini busy. 4 dancer move variations. Girls, sides pass out, boys pass in, girls begin a split square through 3. Remember, for even advanced dancers, square through with some of the people in the half sashayed position might be a bit of a surprise. And now I'm applying it to split square through 3, so I'm pushing their ability to dance square through from the non-standard position, simultaneously with drilling split square through here. And same kind of thing for the second one. Again, with box transfer, split transfer, and another one. And if you can visualize those, you'll find that the girls are leading in one of them and the boys are leading in another one, so that they're getting it from waves with people facing out and in, and from columns and in the center, and one sex and the other. So that is a tough figure. That's not one you're going to call to people who aren't good with split transfer. That last one at the bottom is a difficult figure. Okay. Now, the last part here is ideas for developing workshop tips or theme tips. Please note, and I put this on here twice, and I really mean this, please note that each piece of choreography is a separate idea. And in some cases, you might think it's 2 or 3 ideas, and if that's appropriate for your dances, think that way. Do think that way. Each is meant to be expanded into an entire workshop tip of gradually increasing difficulty. So I'm tossing out single ideas here. Please, I did something like this once before, and I had somebody come up to me and say, that was wonderful stuff. We danced it all in one night. I'm thinking, oh, how did these dancers survive? Don't do that. That's not my intention here at all. Little bits and pieces here. These are just ideas, and it's up to you to expand it to suit whoever you call to. Left wave, turn and deal. You're using that? Good. Yes. How about the rest of you? You using left wave, turn and deals? Yeah. Good. Okay. From title. I think that's probably tucked in there somewhere too. Now, here's a variation. Randy was talking about doing crossovers, teaching crossover circulates from waves, presumably with the girls facing out, boys facing in initially. So here's the extension. Set them up, sides wheel through, touch a quarter, and that puts them in a position where just the boys can crossover circulate, and down the line here, just the girls can crossover circulate. So I'm working on that same idea, but just having one of them do their thing at a time. Hourglasses. Think of other ways to set it up besides couple circulate when the centers go once and a half. This is a little bit of a stretch here. Columns circulate, go once and a half. Just the ladies spread. I think technically they've landed that on C1 just in the last little while. But if you're careful with the explanation, that's pretty clear that you don't want the boys to move. 6x2 acey-deucey from an hourglass. Don't forget, you can do it from there just as well as from a diamond. Spin the windmill. Do you use the ins and outs as well as the rights and lefts? Yeah, good. Okay. Less common mainstream or plus. Do you do recycle from all the different possibilities without killing your dancers in the process, because you have to teach that stuff? Spin chain and exchange the gears, the obvious thing. You're going to do this left-handed or half sashayed or whatever. Fan the top from the various possibilities. Single circle 3/4 instead of a half. 6x2 AC-doocy with when you've got quarter tag position, so that, or something akin to a quarter tag. It's not exactly a quarter tag, but you call them an outside circulate pattern that works. So the outside have to be in a mini wave. Yeah, quarter mini wave. Girls zoom. Peel off from a column. And how about ending with half of a crossover circulate face in at home? Good. Thinking on the same wavelength here. Okay, modifiers. Oh, ocean wave rule to facing couples rule. Head swing through, and from there begin a split square through 3. Okay. Partner trade. Grand swing through. Should be able to do that, obviously, but from a line. Out of the grand swing through, pass in. Okay. Double pass through, right roll to a wave. Spin the top. Out of that resulting wave, which is a normal one, square chain through. Okay. Trade by, swap around, and so forth. Heads box the gnat. Spin the windmill. What does that do? It's not the standard spin the windmill, is it? Because I don't have them in a wave to begin with, so that we've turned that box in the middle a quarter. Let me see, one of these. No, it's not that one. And rolls. Wheel through and roll. Lock it and roll. Mini busy in the outsides roll. Diamond circulate in the outsides roll. Recycle and roll. They really like that. Dancers think that's spectacular when you go right into a grand right and left. Grand remake and roll. Out roll, circulate and roll. Oh, that does interesting things. Be careful with that one. And spread. Chain reaction and spread. Why not? Diamond chain through and spread. Motivate and spread. As couple stuff. You can work your way through those. There's nothing very exotic there, but some of it isn't easy. Okay? Fractions. Remember, one of these at a time. Don't overwhelm them. And how is your brain doing? Still jumping from one to another here. Half swap around. What do you have? Diamond. Girls, let's see, what do we got here? Where's the next one in here? Half triple scoot. That's an interesting formation. What have we got from a column? Half triple scoot. Yeah. Of course, you have to know what that is, but yeah, it's like a grand follow-through or a tidal. Well, is it a wave? It's too. What was that?
The ending formation would be a wave of 4 middle, and the ends being titled as a couple.
Yeah. Test one. I just still got it, but I better not touch it here. Okay. Where am I? Half of a crossover circulate again, facing at home at the very end here. And then in the A2 list, 2/3 of a mini busy. In roll circulate 1.5. Those are fraction pieces that are in there. Left stuff. Left wheel through. Obvious kind of thing. Left wheel through and roll. Left transfer the column. In that case, you don't really have to say the left. It's a helping word. Left square chain through. You need the left there if they're facing when they start. Left turn and deal, which of course left shoulder pass. Left osado to a left-handed wave. If we're in lefts, that's your body flow. Okay, A1 break. Circle to the left. Walk around the corner. Seesaw your partner. Men star right to your partner. Left, all 8, half a top. Left, all 8, 3/4 the top to your corner for an Allemande left. Back to your partner, swing and promenade. Okay.
All of those words left, are they necessary or are they hints?
Not all of them. Yeah, the men star right, you need to say the left to get them going on that all 8 half a top because they're coming. Yeah. That's it. The bracket, when I put the parentheses in there, that's telling me this is a hint. This is a help. When I don't have the bracket, it's I need to say it. Action. Okay. Heads left touch a quarter, centers walk and dodge. Oh, that's just off mainstream, but that's a little bit of a wake-up call. Left spin the top. Do I need the left there? Yes, because they weren't in the wave to begin with. If they'd been in a left-handed wave, then would I need the left? No. Okay, left hinge, column circulate, split counter rotate, trade circulate, single wheel, left pass and roll your neighbor and spread. All left shoulder passings going on here, and so forth. Do your part stuff. Okay, heads pass out, pass in, touch a quarter and the girls roll. Boys do your part of a track too, while the girls as couples extend. Girls left half tag. Swing through. The girls fold. Peel the top. Grand swing through and girls do your part of a locket. Cut the diamond. Girls run. Couples hinge. Center 4-wheel and deal while the others bend the line, and you are home. Okay. Yeah, all 8s and all 4 couples. All 8 do a facing recycle. Now, I don't really have to say facing, but I certainly would for advanced dancers because this is kind of a surprise to the system here. All 8 swing and mix. In my club, at least, that's a fairly well-used move there. All 8 recycle. Different type of recycle. You've squared up more or less. When you finish that, all 4 couples do a right and left through, gets you back home. Okay. And the next one is one that I particularly like as well. All 4 couples pass the C. From there, remake the thar. All 8 switch the wave, which is going to have the girls run to the left and the boys star left half across. Pick up your partner, promenade her home. Definition variations. Carefully study each definition for possible variations that you might have missed. Introducing new ideas one at a time will increase success. So, same thing. Don't overdo it with this stuff. These are all ideas one at a time. Heads right and left through and half sachet. Those facing start a double star through. Explode and roll. And by definition, you can all roll if you read carefully. Center square through 3, pass in and slide through. We are home. Then we can do cast a shadow with both the centers facing out. No real surprises there. Cycle and wheel, he already talked about this in as much detail as I've done. Single hinge versus partner hinge. Arm turn cast off, 3/4 versus push cast. This is kind of complicated. I'm not going to go through all of that one, but certainly think about the variations that are possible there. Scoot chain through now. Okay, we're starting with heads past the ocean. From there, do a scoot chain through. We have 2 waves doing the swing through and the turn through and coming back to a 3/4 tag position. Clover and locket. We're still in that quarter tag position. Scoot and weave. So the centers are coming in with a left hand for the weave. Single wheel and roll. Centers walk and dodge, in roll circulate, centers half swap around, Okay, 6x2 AC-DC, flip the hourglass, boys circulate, explode and slide through to your corner, element left. And the very last thing on here, 2 simultaneous moves. I really like to use head square through, but on 3 pass out. Girls pass in, boys pass out. Ooh, that's a nice two-faced line we've got. Couple circulate, turn and deal, square through. Girls go 3, boys go 4. Girls cloverleaf, swing through and the centers run. Boys Ferris wheel while the girls turn and deal. Double pass through, face left, left, turn and deal, and element left in your home. And in the A2 list, to finish off, side slide through and spread, pass through. Boys do your part of step and slide while the girls single wheel. Transfer the column. Centers trade, boys trade. Explode the wave. Do your part. Boys chase right while the girls crossover circulate. Centers box the gnat and pass the ocean. Diamond circulate, 6x2 AC-DC. Flip the diamond. Girls cast a shadow while the boys box counter rotate and promenader home. That's that. Can I put on the tape that people are listening and don't have this? If they search for my email, which they can find fairly easily on the website, I would send them a copy of the handout. And the home office would have it as well, yeah.
That's a wealth of artillery you have in your hands. Use it with good judgment.
Very good. Does anybody have any questions for either of our panelists? Okay. No, you got to wait till I get the mic back there. Okay, I guess I could sing a song while I'm walking back here. Keep the time going. Noise, noise, noise.
My name is Ulrich Brandt from Germany. I'm calling for 25 years and a whole lot of the time also A stuff. And I have a couple of questions that may be also interesting for the other people. Randy, you mentioned this 2 dancer call, the right roll especially, and said that you will show the smallest unit. That means 2 dancers. But there is a little pitfall with Dottie mentioned also. If you have it from a box and do a right roll, then you got a breathing problem. There's the smallest breathing problem you can get. Imagine from parallel waves, right roll. You can do that. That's for tough groups, okay. But you got an immense breathing problem due to the transition from that parallel waves to what's going on there? Yes, to a tidal wave, right? And a tidal wave in that case. And that it might be a good idea, even if it is a 2-dancer call, basically, to work in a demonstration with a 4 or even 8-dancer call version of that to stick on the breathing here. You said that you cannot see the talent of a dancer. I think that's not quite right. If you see, for instance, a dancer performing a simple pass-through from a static square, standing between the sides, and that's correct, in fact, then you have a dancer who can think about several things, and it's easier for the dancer, for example, to get that sequence like a heads pass through and split circulate. This dancer who at the first moment will stay in between the sides has no problem to get the concept, because he will at least at a moment get aware of the actual position and is able to perform the call correctly. Transfer the column. We have a tool, the tandem, which is introduced in the plus definitions for track 2. And when you said that there's a transfer the column, think about the lead tandem peel off, and then the rest to the call. That is my personal opinion as a tool, but you can legally use it because it's introduced from plus on. You may forget it later and then reintroduce it as a regular figure in C, but the tool is there because a tandem will end at the end of a line, of a virtual line in that case, and all the dancers will know that, hopefully. Simple things in A. What do you think? All four couples do pas so. That leads us to the four-dancer version of do pas so, where you turn, dancers will know that, hopefully. Simple things in A. What do you think? All four couples do pas so. That leads us to the four-dancer version of do pas so, where you turn with your partner and then with the opposite, and then think of all eight, which is even better than the simple version of do pas so, because you can expand it to the outside and then go back to your home place. Okay, let's last thing. Half swap around. I don't think that ends in diamonds. It ends in a star. Not only that, I can think of a figure swaps the gears, but for a diamond, there has to be one out-facing dancer going half the way of a split circulate, but they are all in-facing dancers, and the in-facing dancers doing the turn in order to occupy an out-facing position will touch the center in a certain way, and that leads us into stars. There is not enough space to talk about a diamond in this case. Okay, let's stop the comments here. Thank you.
Hello. Hi. We're back here live in Charlotte. Would you guys like to? They weren't all questions, were they? They were just comments. Comments. Okay. So, Randy, you want to?
At least one guy was listening to what we said. You hit on a lot of things there. When you said talent, I still believe that dancer that knew to stop in the middle, it just didn't happen overnight. He was taught to stop in the middle somewhere in his teaching thing. That's what I was referring to as natural talent. They have to be told, or they're going to do a pass-through probably incorrectly by going further than what you're saying. To respond, not necessarily for Dottie, because she'll give your opinion. If you go forward and then tell the dancers come way back and call half a swap around, I see no problem in doing that. Because if you come forward and come way back, I think it puts the points in a point position. So it depends on how you approach it. Is that technically correct? In Europe and Germany and everywhere we go, they take these things that we put down in English language so literally that it's unbelievable. If you're doing all four couples do, pas, so, I don't think there's anybody in our Americas that could do that. But first of all, because they don't know what do, pas, so is. They don't know it finishes with a courtesy turn. They don't know it can be a directed dancer by the left. If you called that for any of my C2, C3, any of those dancers, they wouldn't have a clue. But in Germany, you can get away with doing some of that stuff. Come back up here. Put on the mic.
We're back on the air again.
Okay, I did that at home, and for safety, I get back to the do pas so with four people first, and after that, the all four couples do pas so was rather easy. I did that for a C1 group here in the guest step. I also told them, okay, do you remember the do pas so from a four-people circle? Showed them first, and then got to the point where I could do all eight do pas so, and that worked perfectly. Here it's also a question of judgment what you do, and that's independent of the European or of the situation here.
So it's basically what you said earlier.
Guidance from you. I want to throw this out and see. This is the new definition of right roll to a wave. From dancers back to back or a tandem, period. the leads, right face, you turn back, and all touch. I interpret that by you can't call this any longer and still be legit. You say heads touch a quarter, all 8 right roll to a wave. That's not going to be legit no more, gang. Our rules of leaders and trailers that we've thought was part of the rule all along is not there. I don't believe that if this was called a lot, it could be called on the carpet and say, hey, you can't legally call that. You have 2 trailers that are not in a tandem, they're face to face. From dancers back to back or in a tandem is the only place you can call right roll to a wave. Now, if you're in a 2-face line or if you're in ocean waves, there you got the arrangements that you were talking about that requires the breathing. I'm going to let Dottie respond to your other comments.
I'm just going to follow up on this. I'm just thinking about what you're saying here. Certainly, if we say that we can only do it from those positions, but it doesn't say that, does it? Okay. So, my interpretation... Well, yeah, but then we'd have to say that for every move. So the choice has been, if we want to restrict it to only, then we put the word only in. And if we don't, what we're saying is, this is where it's essentially, the definitions committee is saying, this is where it's used the most. But we aren't saying you absolutely can't use it from anywhere else if you see another place that this definition clearly defines everything that's supposed to happen.
I'm from Hungary. I don't speak English. I can only interpret what's written on paper. How are they going to know that the trailers are supposed to just step forward? It ain't implied.
The definition says the leaders, right face, you turn back. So in this case, how many leaders have we got? 1. That person does a right face, you turn back. Touch a quarter. Or touch, sorry, no quarter. Just touch. Yes, yeah.
What'd you guys do? Oh, there it is. Hi, guys. We're back on air again. Just gently hold it. That's all I got to do.
Eric Hennerlaw, Court of Moderator. I believe there's a preface in the beginning of the advanced definitions that specifically talks about the word only. And when the word only is used, that it's restricted to that formation. In the absence of the word only, there is no restriction necessarily on the call. And I think it's right there in the front of that. So I'm kind of addressing that point.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions you'd like to ask our panelists? Oh, Dottie?
Regarding the swap around situation, I mean, if certainly what he said, I quite agree with. But if I called it and I saw that they were tending to make stars instead of the diamond that I wanted, under normal circumstances, I would find myself with all of one sex, say, in the middle, and the other ones out on the where I wanted the points, and I would simply reinforce my, adjust to make diamonds here, or girls are in the middle of a diamond, or say something to let them know that I don't want stars, I want diamonds, and make sure they know which one it is that I want. Check the diamonds with the girls in the middle. The girls are in a wave, and you have diamonds, so that they are aware that that's where that adjustment. But I'm not sure that I agree with you in the first place that person on the outside. I can see they're close, but
it's what do you want to get 4 dancers up to do the half?
Only me and some other guy.
Oh, why don't you just get 4 guys, okay? Let's just get 4. Does you guys mind just to go through this real quick? We got about 30 seconds, and you want to do the half of a swap around. Is that correct?
One preceding thing and then half of a swap around. Because the preceding thing I need to it's out of
okay.
Okay, very quick.
Now, when you hold the mic, just hold it gently, okay? Don't squeeze it.
Okay. Let's first do from here. Let's assume to be a normal distance for a box. Let's first from here do a half of a partner trade. What is going on? We will get waves. Let's back up for a moment. And then I'm the boy, do half of a swap around. So it's similar motion as half of a partner trade, and there for half of a partner trade you would have a mini wave in the center. They walk up halfway exactly to that center line between the handhold for the mini wave, and that leads into a star, and that's my point. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, we're back on the air again. Well, kids, it's 3 o'clock, actually a little after. I think it was a wonderful session. Dottie Welch, Randy Doherty, thank you very much. A nice hand. Beautiful job.